more minutes to kind of filter in, and then we'll get going. So hope everybody's having a good day. Tomorrow's Friday. Weather's great here in fabulous Bremerton, Washington. Okay, that's enough. Let's get going. So, welcome to Security Awareness Training. We do this once a month for anybody that wants to show up. We can give you a certificate of completion. This meets the requirement for security awareness training, which is usually an annual requirement for most organizations. And I'm going to show you a lot of examples. This is not going to be like the security awareness training where somebody's hand draws a little cartoon and they tell you something and that's over in 5 minutes. This is going to take an hour, and we're going to see lots of examples. First, the commercial part, we are Lumify Cyber. We do managed detection and response, that is SOC as a service. We also have a full consulting suite of services, risk assessment, penetration testing, tabletop exercises, write policies for you, whatever. Okay, that's the commercial. Here we go. All right, so stick with us. And you really are doing something good for the world here. We are having, as a country, our backside handed to us right now. So the more you get used to the bait that you're going to be seeing all the time, the better off you're going to be. You're going to be protecting the organization that you work for. These are all good things. You can get credit, like I said, for being here. If you need a certificate of completion, Ashley is in the chat. Brad is in the chat. You can ask either one of them, and we'll make sure that you get that. Okay, this is me. My role here is a field CISO. That's a customer-facing position. I'm just a resource for anybody to use. My background, I have about 35 years in information security. Started hand-rolling my own firewalls and selling them in Southern California in 1994 after I left the Jet Propulsion Laboratory where I did satellite oceanography. Okay, don't really need to know that either. Why are you here? Well, maybe it's because in your place of business, you house records that, if disclosed, are going to result in a whole bunch of financial hurt, right up to a class action suit. And that's happening very routinely now. Fines, you can get extra scrutiny from regulators. Customers are going to run away. Okay. If you are in the public sector, and you support water purification, waste treatment, traffic management, communications for law enforcement, public safety, emergency management, 911, elections. We don't want any of that stuff knocked down. Thank you for being here. Maybe, like we said, this is just an annual requirement. Somebody said you had to be here, or maybe you're just bored. You want to do this over lunch. We don't care. Thank you for being here. What we want you to take away, the internet is not a nice place. It is full of fraud. It's full of malware, people that want to sell to you, steal from you, and manipulate your opinion. And lately, it's gotten very good at doing that last one. Okay, we're going to talk about the ways that they, the threat actors, the bad guys, the organized criminals, the nation states, get into networks and take that stuff over, and what happens after that. Now, this bait is coming from everywhere right now. It's text messages, it's phone calls, it's video, fake video. Yes, email, okay? And it's not just a shotgun blast out over the internet now. There's targeting and research that go into this. They're going to go on LinkedIn. They're going to find out who reports to who can authorize the movement of money, who can effect the transfer of money, right? Something called business email compromise that we will talk about. All right, before we get going, let's ground ourselves in what we're really trying to prevent here, because all this cyber nonsense doesn't help the conversation. All right, there are 5 business outcomes that we don't want to happen. Unauthorized disclosure of protected records. We know exactly what it costs, between $200 and $300 a record to clean up, and that's before the class action suit hits. Okay, theft through business email compromise that I will show you, extortion through the use of ransomware, denial of service. We'll talk about some of those things. Your network could be that third party that attacks others, and you just may get knocked down for the sake of knocking you down. And the geopolitical situation in the world today is starting to look a whole lot like that last one. There are malware out there called wipers. What they do, you think it's going to snarl your network and you're going to have to pay an extortion demand. No, they're just knocking you down. All right, little vocabulary because we use a lot of secret handshake language. What is ransomware? All right, well, ransomware, it's a piece of malware. It's a little piece of unwanted software that starts this process, okay? When that thing first lands, it's not ransomware. It's just going to provide interactive access to somebody probably on the other side of the world, but increasingly they're also domestic. Okay. So they're going to come and go in your network as they please, right? It's if that PDF snuck through and you open that PDF or gave away a password, something like that, they're going to get this initial access into the network. And they're going to look around and they're going to find your backups, your critical servers, records to steal. The records will probably go out first, and then they're going to lay in encryption software. And it comes down to one button press, and everything in your network snarled up. It's encrypted. And then you get the extortion demand. Hey, you want your network back? We'll sell you the decryption key. Okay. This stuff is nasty. And the average loss now for any business, there's a report by IBM out this week, is $10 million. Okay. So these are significant events. Even if you decide to rebuild your network from scratch, and maybe you have immutable backups that you can use, right? They have leverage. If they have those records, they'll say, oh, you're not going to pay us? We're going to make the records public, and then you get a class action suit. Okay. All right. That's how ransomware and double extortion work, right? Business email compromise. There's more money lost to business email compromise than there is to ransomware, right? Why? Because it's really easy to do. So, maybe I'll just send your accounts payable people an invoice. And if it's below a certain threshold, they'll just pay it. Okay. Easy to do. Somewhere in the middle, the CEO will text you or contact you in some way and say, hey, I'm at this conference and I want to buy our customers some gift cards. Could you run out and get those for me and just send me the serial numbers? Okay. All right. On the high end, all right, an employee will say, a spoofed email employee, right? It's not really going to be that employee's email. They'll say, hey, I just got a new bank account. Can you start depositing my paychecks into this new bank account? And if they convince, HR to make that change, all of a sudden the money is gone. On the very high end, somebody's email system will get compromised. Okay. The bad guys are in the email system. When they're in there, they surveil what's going on. They figure out if there's financial transactions going back and forth, and they do that same trick. They'll say, hey, we got a new account here. So when you pay us from going forward. So I'll give you an example. In There is a charity and nonprofit. It's called Mary's Place, and it's a homeless shelter for women and children. And Mary's Place is all over the country, and cities support, right, provide some funding for them. So Mary's Place in Seattle had their email system compromised. Bad guy is able to come and go out of the email system, read the emails, finds out that the city of Seattle pays Mary's Place, contacts from the right email account the people at the city of Seattle and say, we have a new bank account. Please direct new funding tranches to that account. And they didn't find out till $800,000 later. Okay. So business email compromise, this is pervasive. You'll see it all the time. Cryptocurrency mining. Okay. Cryptocurrency, we kind of all know kind of what it is, right? But so where does this stuff come from? Well, a computer goes to work trying to solve a cryptographic algorithm. When it does, that mints a coin and the miner gets paid for the coin. All right. So we talked about those 5 business outcomes. One was theft. Well, this is theft of resources, theft of CPU, memory, et cetera, et cetera. If power is real cheap, you can just go rack up computers in Wenatchee, Washington, where all the power comes from falling water, and call it good, work out of a data center there. And a lot of people did that early on. Now, malware will compromise computers. And remember, it's just a little unwanted piece of software that gets on there where you've given away a password. Somehow they're getting access in here and they will lay in cryptocurrency mining software. And they will use compromised computers all over the world to do this for them. Okay. How do you know this is going on? Your computer's fan won't turn off. Your computer just hardly works at all. It takes a lot of processing to do this, to solve these. So heads up, we'll come back to this. Pig butchering. All right. So this is really a bad term, and it's actually a loose translation of a Chinese term that means fattening up the pig, before butchering, right? So what happens is somebody will reach out to you, and here's an example. This is somebody reaching out to me on LinkedIn, and immediately they want to start a conversation. Okay, and what happens is they get friendly, and they may even use deep fake videos to convince you that it's a young, attractive person. And eventually they say, hey, I'm invested in this crypto platform and it's really paying off. You want to check it out? And they'll get you to invest a little bit of money. and they will give you access to a portal that shows your money rapidly growing. You go, oh man, I got to get all in. You put in a bunch more money and everything disappears and your money is gone. All right. So it's really a romance scam that ends up in a cryptocurrency theft or just theft of your funds. Okay. It also shows up like this. Okay. This is also me. This is yesterday. So there's a variety of tactics, and you'll get this as a text message, and they'll say, "Hey, I talked to this number once, but I don't know who you are." And there's you can see this one here. Do you have a window for some cycling in Seattle in October? Well, I have a 206 phone number, so you know, okay, they figure out I'm insane. And I say no, and immediately they want to start talking. Okay. Do not engage. Do not engage. A lot of times, we mess around with people like this just to waste their time. It's really a good idea to just don't engage, just ignore these things. Okay, that was a little bit of vocabulary. Now you know what pig butchering is, all right? Let's talk about the three most prevalent tactics that initial access into a network is gained, all right? Number one, credential abuse. What are credentials? Passwords, all right? So, low-end methods. People are bad at picking passwords, okay? There's a top 100 list, and there are dictionaries out there that will try those top 100 passwords against your account all over the place. And if you're monitoring what's going on the perimeter of a network, especially if it's a login system like for remote access, right? Remote desktop protocol, Ivanti VPN, anything like that, if you're monitoring that, you're going to see password failures going on all the time. Okay. It is the background noise of the internet at this point. So if any of your passwords are on this list for anywhere, okay, it's on you. I mean, really, we are so far past the point where you can pick password as a password, right? There's also problems with unchanged default passwords. So, for example, the Iranians compromised a whole bunch of water utilities. Why? Because they were running programmable logic controllers, right? The things that open and shut valves and dam gates and things like that. And they were Israeli made. So they went out and they were going to attack all of these. Well, they didn't use some super uber sophisticated technique. What they did was they looked up the default password for the PLCs on the internet and figured out that none of these operators in these water utilities had ever changed them. They just walked in. All right. That's a low end method. Okay. Phishing and voicemail phishing. We'll come back to this, right? The whole password guessing dictionary talk. I talked about that. There's also dumps of stolen passwords. So, for example, when Yahoo was going through an acquisition, they lost 1 billion passwords. Did not help their valuation during that acquisition event. Regardless, those passwords are out there. So if you were a Yahoo user and your password is in there and you have used that password for Amazon, PayPal, anything, they'll find it. Okay. So just don't share passwords. We'll get to the do's and don'ts here in a while, but it's really good to use a password manager. All right. In the middle. So credential stuffing. Okay. That's where those stolen passwords come in, right? Even if you were on that list and you have a password there and you're not using that password anywhere else, they'll take all the passwords on there and they'll try all of them. Forget the top 100. They'll try the billion. So again, the background noise of the internet. Multi-factor authentication fatigue. This is a tactic that is used a lot by this group Scattered Spider, who are teens and 20-somethings in the US and UK who use the Russian affiliate model from the cybercrime organizations over there to use their infrastructure and tools, but they do their criming here. Okay, they have proximity to us. Well, one of their techniques is this MFA fatigue. They will get your password and then they're going to try and log in and it says, okay, what's the code that came on your phone? Right? They will start bombing you with requests for that second factor, right? For you to just go, okay, I'm just going to make it go away. Right? And it works. Right? So what's the take home there? If you start getting a whole bunch of these requests for that second factor, authorize, and you're not doing it, you got to report that. Okay. Info stealers. Okay. So here's the Chrome browser and it's telling you it wants to update. Right. It's very important that you do this. Why? Because if your browser is unpatched needs an update, hasn't gotten it, you can run across a website that's got an info stealer built into it. And what it's going to do is just suck all of the stored passwords right out of your browser, just like that, right? And these things, these tools are out there. Like I said, Russians have these criminal corporations now where they rent out tools like this and will help facilitate a campaign. Okay, so here's credential stuffing. Okay, so here's this collection of stolen credentials. Note that it's a bunch of bots that do this. All right, this is not somebody behind a keyboard, trying passwords. So let me just show you an example. This is me. This is me getting a login failure every 20 seconds for days. All right, and if you look at the teeny weeny Istrano vision on here, you can see that they come from Kuwait, India, China, Russia, and the list went on and on. Why? Because there are compromised computers all over the world that are put to work under a centralized command system to say, go after this guy, use the billion password database, and go to town on him. Okay. Why do they do this to me? Because I talk on TV and write stuff, and part of that's about what China does. All right. On the high end, okay, SIM swapping. Right? What is SIM swapping? So the SIM card is what uniquely identifies your phone to the cell phone network. Okay. And if I can find enough information about you to impersonate you, and that is very easy to do with something called data brokers. You've heard of Spokio and these things, right? This is exactly where you go to find enough information on a person to impersonate them. If I can call your phone company, and this works better with the lower end providers, not the T-Mobiles, AT&Ts, and Verizons, although it does work there too. But if I can convince them that I'm you, and I say, listen, I was taking a ferry across Puget Sound, and it was a clear day, and I was taking a picture of Mount Rainier, and an orca jumped up and ate my phone. So here's my new phone, and would you please connect my old phone number to this phone? And if I can convince them to do that, I'm holding your phone, and I can do anything you can do with the phone. So, for example, I can go to one of your accounts and say, forgot password. And it'll say, okay, what's the code that just came on your phone? And I'm in. So, this is also a method that's being used increasingly by this scattered spider group. Why? Because they're native English speakers. They know how our processes work here, and they know exactly how to find out data about people to impersonate them. Session token stripping. I'll talk about that in a second. So this scattered spider gang comes from this larger organization called the Com. And there are different divisions of this that do different things. And one of those divisions is physical violence. So they have found people in the UK in trunks of cars doused with gasoline. Okay. People's families have been threatened. Bricks have gone through windows just to get a password to a cryptocurrency wallet, things like that, or access into some corporation. Give me a password or I'm going to kill you. That's real. This is getting too real. Okay, so let's talk about session token stripping. So let's say email comes in and says, your storage is at 99%. Hi, I'm Microsoft. Okay, Microsoft will never say that to you. Well, they say, okay, well, it says here, click this link and go to the dashboard and see what we're talking about. And you can manage this yourself. You go, oh, okay. Now look, you're already logged in to Microsoft, right? Now you're on a computer that is in your Azure tenant, right? You have access to your email, all that. You will not get challenged for a second factor while you are connected to Microsoft, right? You've already done that. You've authenticated, it knows who you are. Okay. So what happens is you click the link and it activates a script. And that script is proxied through bad guy computer. And that computer strips off the session token that tells Microsoft this is an active session and presents it to Microsoft. And Microsoft says, oh, great session you have there, but I've never seen your device before. So here's the challenge for the second factor. Route it back to the user who thinks they are logging into Microsoft. And then if they say, okay, bad guy is in, but the user is directed to a Microsoft page, thinks everything just happened fine, and it happened in 1 minute. And I've seen it happen up close and personal. All right. Now the bad guy has Office 365, OneDrive, SharePoint, your single sign-on applications. The farm has just been given away. All right. Just because you got faked out by a message from Microsoft that said you're out of storage. All right. Credential abuse. How do you avoid this? Look, passwords out, passphrases in. So right there, NIST drops password complexity and mandatory reset rules. Hey, that's great. What should your passphrase be? First line of a book. All right. Let me give you an example. At the city of Seattle, we had an encryption system and we needed to have a master decryption key. This is no longer true. This is why I can tell you this. That master decryption key had to have a passphrase to open it up. Here's the passphrase. The galley is always at the Seattle end of the boat. And if you've ever been on a ferry in Puget Sound, you know that's true. Okay. That will take longer than the universe exists for somebody to just guess by randomly putting characters together, right? Monkeys with typewriters, right? So that's the way you want to do it. Always combine this with multi-factor authentication. We'll come back to this, right? There's a definition of that, and I want to make sure everybody knows what that is. Unique passwords. Use a password vault to store them, right? I use Bitwarden. We've used Keeper before. There's OnePass, LastPass, Dashlane. All these are really good. Much better than storing in a browser. Why? An unpatched browser hits an info stealer and everything's gone. Okay. See the URL there, haveibeenpwned.com. Maybe while we're doing this right now, you can go to haveibeenpwned.com, start putting in your email addresses and see if the password for that email address has been disclosed in one of these dumps. You should know that, right? It's a good service. All right, that was credential abuse. Number 2, vulnerability exploit. We're going to get through this one kind of fast. This one's a little technical. What is a vulnerability? All right, well, somebody coded something wrong and you can break it. That's basically what that is. So let me give you an example. One of the first, if not the first, mail transport agent was called SendMail, ran on Unix systems, still does. And it was written by a guy named Eric Allman. And so he's coded up SendMail. And so it's not what you type your email into, it's when you hit send, it's the system it goes to in your network that will figure out the system it needs to deliver to. Okay. So he's coding up SendMail as well. I need a variable for sender address. The sender address is never going to be more than 255 characters, so I'm going to give it a 255 byte buffer, right? Little place to store it in memory. And he did not bound it. He did not make it impossible to go over that 255 bytes. So what happens when a piece of email comes in, that's 257 bytes with a sender address, or 712 or 1461. You overflow the buffer. And if you get the offset just right, the number of bytes to exceed the end of that buffer, you can put your choice of running executable code into the running stack of the machine. You now own the machine. This happens all the time. When vulnerabilities come out, and it's for a product that faces the internet, and it's largely firewalls and VPN devices, they're just getting pilloried, and it's happening very quickly. So, what you need to do is patch your stuff. What else is a vulnerability? All right. Well, we never train our users. That's a vulnerability. They're really gullible. Okay. Well, thank you for being here. It can be a vulnerability. You never changed the default password on a piece of equipment that's facing the internet, and all somebody has to do is look up that default and they're in. Okay. So, I mean, there's a lot of difference to a vulnerability. Usually we're talking about the technical ones. Okay. Now, what's going on with this stuff? Every time one of these things is announced, everybody goes to work trying to figure out, okay, I got the patch. Let's reverse engineer it. Let's see what it fixes. And then we build an exploit to break that. Meanwhile, the scanning starts immediately. There's one report that in what we call the Hafnium attack some years ago against Microsoft on-premise Exchange servers, they got crushed so quickly, and the measurements that were made said that the Chinese government started to scan the internet for exposed Exchange servers within 5 minutes of the announcement that came out from Microsoft with the patch, right? This stuff is serious. So now it's a race, right? The exploit along with that, when they build the exploit, the thing that will break that vulnerability to take over the computer, right? Like the email that's got just the right number of bytes in the sender address, that exploit is automated too. So a lot of organizations hear this all the time. We're too small. We have nothing to steal. Why would they come after us? The scanner doesn't care how small you are. All right. They're going to find you and they're going to pop you. All right. So how do we avoid this? We avoid this by getting your stuff patched, okay? Patched, update. When a vulnerability comes out and it's something that faces the internet, you drop what you're doing, right? And especially if it's one of these that's very easy to exploit. There's a couple out there right now. So there's this scoring system that tells you how bad these things are, right? The CVSS, the Common Vulnerability Scoring System. There's also our friends at CISA maintain something called the KEV catalog, the known exploited vulnerabilities. And you can use all of this stuff to say, here is the urgency that we need to take with getting this particular thing patched. Okay. And so, if you need a policy for something like that, ask me, I'll give you a policy. So exactly how to score these things, right? So business organizations, you got to keep on top of this. It's good to treat some of these vulnerability announcements as an incident. It becomes your very top priority. Now at home, Microsoft will patch itself. Okay. You got to reboot to activate the patches though. Apple will get nasty with you, right? It's like my iPhone will complain to me is, look, I've been asking you to reboot for days now. So go ahead and go to sleep because you wake up, you're going to have a new phone, right? Linux, Android, which are essentially the same operating system, it's good to review the admin settings and make sure that that is automated. Okay. All right. That was vulnerability exploit. Okay. Credential abuse, vulnerability exploit, and now everybody's favorite, social engineering. Okay. I'm just going to talk you into doing something bad. There are things about us that help the bad guys. Okay. So cognitive biases, right? The halo effect. Hey, I got this mail from Starbucks and they're offering me a free whatever gift card for my opinion. Okay, well, I trust Starbucks. This may probably legit. Okay. Free trials, limited time offers, things that increase the urgency, right? Curiosity effect. If there's something that's in the news that everybody was really, glued to. I remember at the city of Seattle, we had one come in that was really effective. Saddam Hussein found alive. Oh my God, everybody had to click on that. Authority bias, right? Something comes in from the CEO, right? You go, oh, I better do that. Okay. These are things about us. So just be aware of these things because you're going to see them in these examples. Phishing, okay. I mean, we kind of all know what this is, right? It's a site that looks like a login page for Microsoft or Dropbox or DocuSign or whatever. There's brands that are impersonated a lot, and you can see the top phished brands right there. Right now, there are these kits out there, right? Run by these Russian affiliate model groups where all you do is log into their portal, give it the URL of the company that you want to impersonate, and right away it registers one or two domains with look-alike URLs, makes them look exactly like the real thing, and uses generative AI to write the phishing message to go along with it. All right. This stuff has become so prevalent. That's why I'm saying the internet is just flooded with all of this bad guy stuff going on. We can't get away from it. Only thing you can do is harden up your brain here. All right. Smishing, SMS, short message service, text. Okay. All right. Fake fail delivery. I'm sure everybody's seen this. Okay. Uh, See that second bullet? Not expected. That is the criterion that you need to apply when something comes in and it's asking you to do something like this, right? It, I didn't know this was coming. I'm not expecting a package. And when you can look at the rest of this, okay, the URL looks really weird. It's asking you to do something weird. Please reply Y, then exit the text message and open it again to activate. Okay. I mean, this is like so easy to avoid. And yet this is horribly successful, right? Here's a fake job offer. Hey, you're going to make all this damn money for doing next to nothing. All right. Yeah. What's going to happen is they're going to go, okay, well, in order to pay you, we got to do it through, ACH. So give us the details on your bank account. When that happens, the bank will make two small deposits into the account and they will ask you, the user, okay, so what were those amounts? And the bad guy is going to ask you, what were those amounts? We need to know them to set this up. They just set up two-way ACH and they're just going to drain your bank account. All right. Fake job offer. Don't bite. Okay. Pig butchering by SMS. So like I say, it's better not to engage. I mean, this is me. I like to, jerk them around a little bit. And I'm Werner Heisenberg. No, he's a dead physicist, right? The best part was she said, "Are you Mike?" Because they're looking me up on the internet, and I said, "One can never be certain." So that's a physics joke, and if you got that, I hope you're chuckling. All right, here, this one's current. Everybody has probably seen this, right? Fake toll road notice of evasion, blah, blah, blah. Comes from a Hotmail address. Again, please reply Y, then exit the text message and blah, blah, blah. And what they're going to do is they're just going to get your credit card. Now, you may be thinking, well, this looks so easy to avoid. I would never bite on this. 884,000 credit cards have been disclosed from this campaign. Okay. They collected 884,000 credit cards. And I think it was 13 million messages that went out, which makes it a 7% success rate. That's astronomical. Okay. So, I don't know how those card holders can be notified, other than watch their statements and find out if their stuff is being abused. I mean, this is just really sad. Voice phishing. All right. So anymore, it's so easy to fake somebody's voice. It takes just a few seconds of voice, okay, to create a realistic analog of that voice. So now you can't even trust somebody on the phone that sounds like somebody you know, especially if they're asking you to do something that you don't expect, right? This you didn't expect it is going to come up again and again and again. Okay. So here's a bunch of examples. Hackers impersonate White House chief of staff. Yeah, that's right. That did happen, right? This mom, these bad men have me. Okay, scammers cloned her daughter's voice, faked me out, been kidnapped, right? You probably heard of the grandchild in trouble. Hey, grandpa, I was on spring break in Spain and I got thrown in jail. I need you to bail me out. Okay, so deep fakes for voice and for video are starting to show up everywhere. So really try to verify the identity of the caller as independently as you can. All right. Like in a family, you can have a safe word, right? Got to know the safe word. If you are at a help desk doing this, you might want to say, I need you present for this. You have to come see me. And I will say too, don't type in a URL that somebody gives you over the phone. And so one of the things that we do is we break into computer networks. And we know if we're having trouble, we can get a hold of the help desk, impersonate one of the users, and say, look, just to recreate my problem, go to this URL. And they'll do it, and we got you. Right? So it's really good not to do that. URL comes in over the phone is not the way. Deepfake video. Yep. This is really going to spike when we get closer to elections. So, this kind of disinformation, foreign disinformation to manipulate our elections, the agency under CISA that was working on that got gutted. So this stuff is going I will say too that every country has a dog in the fight as to who gets elected. And so this is going to be coming from everywhere. It's already been used to steal lots of money too, setting the elections aside. So there was a deep fake CFO that actually had a staff meeting, okay, and convinced somebody to start wiring away $1 million a month, and they didn't catch it till $25 million later, right? So, what you can't believe video anymore either. So if you're being asked to perform some kind of transaction, especially if it's financial, you got to verify that. Okay. Don't just take something at face value. You didn't expect it. I'm sorry. I got to verify this. Everybody will appreciate that. All right. All right. We talked about vocabulary. We talked about the 5 business outcomes we're really trying to avoid. We talked about the 3 prevalent ways that initial access is gained into the network, right? Credential abuse, vulnerability exploit, and social engineering. Now let's look at some bait. Business email compromise. Okay, so this came to me from Garrett Silver, who was our CEO, whose email address is not Garrett, sorry, chief_exec.officer1 at AOL.com. Okay, that's not his address. All right. Well, Michael, So now remember the tactics we talked about here. Yeah, there's little grammatical nuances in there, but remember the tactic. I suggest an Amazon gift card coupled with a personal note for me and a dinner would be perfect. Okay, I need you to assist me. All right. Be able to suss this out, right? You have this authority bias where, ooh, the CEO is asking me to do something not expected. It's asking you to do some kind of transaction. Yeah, you got to verify that. So Microsoft will never tell you these things. Microsoft tells administrators things like this, but not you. Okay. Now, look, every one of these, if your eyes go up, you see that every one of these comes from a completely ridiculous address tpaperperformance.com, mountainmadness.net. Okay. None of those are Microsoft. All right. So your radar's got to be good enough to know even if there's like grammatical things on there, it's like, haha, right? But all you have to do is look at the return address. So these are easy to avoid. They still work. Like I said, when I said I saw this up close and personal, the person who had the session token stripping problem was in the office next to me. QR code is a URL. Don't be scanning these things if they come out of the blue. It's a URL and you have no idea where it goes. All right. So in fact, we put the big red dot on here, so none of you would do that. Okay. This is also used for that session token stripping. Okay. And I would say too, if you're out in public and you are, parking a car and it says, oh, to pay for this, here's the QR code, right? Those things just get plastered over all the time, right? You have really no idea. So you got to be really careful with that because they just collect credit cards that way. Okay, phishing, right? Here's multiple examples of brands that have been impersonated. Okay. So DocuSign is one of the top ones. All right. Now, if you go hit any one of these links, first thing that's going to happen is an authentication page is going to come up. All right. When something is asking you to log in after you've clicked on a message like this that you did not expect, stop what you're doing. Look very carefully at all the information in front of you. Ask a question if you need to, and you're probably just going to delete it and move on. But you got to have that radar. Okay, no, you're not going to get a Craftsman tool cabinet for your opinion. No, you are not. Okay. So again, these brands are being impersonated all over the place. Some of these are for collecting credit card information. Some of these are just for trying to get you to log in, assuming that you have an account. If you have a T-Mobile account, right, the authentication page is going to come up. Stop, right? Think very carefully about what you're doing. And remember, you went to the security awareness training where that crazy dude said, no, you don't get free stuff for your PIN and these are this Starbucks, it's CVS, it's everything, it's Home Depot, all over the place. Okay, so don't trust them, don't fall for it. Okay, here's the urgency bias. Oh, and remember this one. So see what it says, limited supply, 9 rewards remaining. They're pulling that cognitive lever right there. Okay, the urgency bias. Oh, I gotta do this now. All right. Says your account will be credited once you log in and approve. Okay, this is Amex. You have a new message. Pending credit will be posted after your approval. Somebody's trying to give you money back, and all you have to do is say yes and accept it. That's not the way this works. If you have a refund coming from somewhere, they just jam it in there. They're not asking you to accept it, and they want your login details for American Express. Okay, this also comes to me. So I have this OG email address that I've had since about 2000 or something like that. And it is just a magnet for this stuff. So a lot of my examples come from that. Well, it turns out that my domain name is the registrar really is Network Solutions, all right? And that's easy to find out. So I get two, three, four of these every week. Okay. Quick notice to let you know that your mailbox services are about to expire. No, they're not. No, they're not. And I know exactly how long my domain registration is for and all of that stuff. All right. So they want to get my login so that they can use what they think is my site. Okay, it's not a site, it's really just an email account. And use that as one of the launch points for who knows, maybe credential stuffing, password guessing, right? So you're looking at this and you go and you hover over the link and you go, yeah, this looks fishy to me. I'm going to run this URL through Virus Total. Okay. See at the bottom, 3 of 96 security vendors flag this URL as malicious. So what you can do if there's ever any doubt is you can go to virustotal.com, click the URL button, you can upload a file, you can put in a URL, and it will run 96 different tools over it and tell you what they found. It's really a handy thing. All right, so LinkedIn turned into a cesspool. This stuff is happening all the time now. So here's a fake job offer, and you'll see this coming from, this is Goldman Sachs, some of the Clorox, I've seen a whole bunch of them. The entire thing is a link, okay, where it says like download for free. Anything you click on there is a link. And so you look at the URL and you go, yeah, okay, well, this looks bad to me, so I'm not going to click it. Go ahead, and go that next step and prove it, right? 6 vendors said this is malicious, right? You just saved your company, right? Or your own bank account. All right, miscellaneous threats. This is actually my favorite. Okay, so we've all heard of the Nigerian prince. Okay, more correctly, it's called a Nigerian 419 scam. 419 being the penal code or the statutory code in Nigeria for fraud. Accurately, it's called an advance fee scam. All right, so here comes this email. Notice that it's to undisclosed recipients. Okay, what is that? It means it's a shotgun blast. It's gone to you and probably 5,000 of your best friends. Okay, attention recipient, they don't even know who you are. Right. So, hey, we have an ATM card package here. How do you know there's an ATM card in there? Before we can send this to you, we need all this information. Copy of my ID? Really? My official working ID is enclosed. Okay, so they're trying to give you that authority bias, or maybe it's the halo effect. Everybody loves the postal service. All right. No, none of this. There's so much wrong with this. Okay. You're on a BCC list. It comes from a weird Gmail address. Why would they send me the badge along with this, right? And it turns out that this is actually effective. Why is it called an advance fee scam? It takes on a lot of forms. It can be, I'm a widow dying of cancer, and I need you to help me give away my fortune before I die. I am a soldier in Syria, and I have a box of gold. I'm trying to get back in the country, and I need help doing that. I am working with an organization to move a pallet of gold from Thailand to China, and we need your logistical expertise. Okay, so it's got all these forms, and it's the offer of some reward. Okay, and what happens is if you engage, they start asking you for money. I got to go pay a bribe. I got to fly to the other side of the country. I have to file paperwork. I have to do this, that, blah, blah, blah. And they're always asking for money. People get caught up in this for years. I know people who have been caught up in this for years, and you can't talk them out of it, right? Because psychologically, you have to say, all that money I gave away is gone. I've been a dumbass the whole time, and nobody wants to go there, right? They want to keep believing that this is going to work. There's this huge payout coming, and I just got to keep sending these little dribbles of money, and eventually it's going to happen, right? No, it's never going to happen. Social media comment scams. Okay, so I'm not a musician. I'm a drummer. I hang around with musicians. But if you're a musician, you know who this guy Rick Beato is. So he does this YouTube channel, What Makes This Song Great, greatest guitar intros, greatest drum fills, and things like that. Every one of you just thought about Phil Collins right now. And so what happens is he'll put a video out there, and then there's comments from the viewers on the video. So somebody with Rick Beato's name, Telegram at Rick Beato, okay, all right, says, hey, I've selected you randomly to win a prize. Let's go over to this other channel and talk about it, right? This other communication type and talk about it. Well, you'll probably get an offer. So you got a free autographed Telecaster guitar or something like that. And all you have to do is pay for shipping, right? So it's kind of an advance fee scam, right? They're just going to get you to send money to them, right? You got to watch out for these because it's not just, Rick's channel here. The YouTube comment scams are all over the place. So it's anybody who's a creator where there's comments after, their content. Oh, the computer support scam. So everybody has seen this, I am reasonably certain. So first of all, let's talk about why it happens, right? This thing pops up out of nowhere. First of all, to make it go away, close the tab. It's gone. Probably won't come back. But why did it happen in the first place? So this is largely an example of something that we call an injected site, right? So you're literally on some website you've always been on, and all of a sudden this thing shows up, right? Well, why did that happen? Well, the way that users interact with internet applications is through form fields, right? So think about eBay. I want green depression glass, anchor hocking, okay? And so eBay, because it's a mature, well-developed application, will take what you typed into that box and go, wait a minute, is this well-formed? Anything look fishy in here? Any commands that look like an attack? No, okay, database, give them what they want. Yeah, and a whole bunch of green depression glass shows up. If it is not a well-developed, mature site that uses something called server-side input validation, you can put direct structured query language commands and talk directly to the database. You can make it barf up its entire contents, or worse, you can inject something into it. That's what's happened here. So the next person that comes by gets the extra little present here. Okay. Seen this happen all the time. Thousands of sites a day get compromised by this. And if I was to ask you what are the most dangerous sites for this type of thing, you probably wouldn't say churches, but they're all developed by volunteers. So what's server-side input validation, right? So watch out for that. Okay, now when this pops up, right, do not call the number. You will be talking to a boiler room, probably in India, where they're basically going to talk you out of a credit card. Okay, what they're going to do is they're going to go, okay, you connect to this URL, right? They're going to give you a URL over the phone. You're going to connect to it, just like I said not to do. And that site will join your computer to the bad guy computer. And they will be able to move your mouse around just like they were a help desk. Okay. They're going to put a bunch of fake tools on there. They may put malware on your computer. And they're going to, oh, you're so full of viruses, but it says here your support contract is lapsed. Do you want to buy a new one? So you think, your computer is about to melt and you give them a credit card number, and that's all they do is take the credit card number. So pro tip, don't engage with these guys. But if you ever do, there are fake credit card numbers on the internet that you can use to give them. And we've done that before, and that makes them very mad. Apps. Okay. If you're an app person, you got to be careful. Thousands of apps are removed every year by Google, Apple, Microsoft out of the app stores because they get in there and they're basically malware. They will do things like hit ad networks in the background. So all these ads are getting all this access. You're paying for all the transmission there, and somebody's getting paid for the ad access. Or it could be just straight up malware that could surveil your phone. And in fact, most apps take location data, take all kinds of other things off your phone. That then is monetized and sold to data brokers like Spokio. So you can actually go to a data broker, and there are lots of them because they're very unregulated, and you can get somebody's location and movement information very easily. Now, Congress is starting to take this up. Why? Because we complain about it? No, because they found out Congress can be tracked this way. So we may get some movement on data brokers soon. But before you download apps, all right, how long has it been in the store? How many people have downloaded it? How is it rated? How many people have rated it? A five-star rating by three people is statistical fuzz. It means nothing. Okay. So not all apps are safe. And some of these have been just famous. There was a flashlight app at one point that just really compromised everybody's phones. And a lot of this stuff is spyware, right? It's there to surveil you. That is its specific reason for living, I guess. All right. So beware. Just be very careful when you're going to put an app on your phone, right? If it's brand new in the market, probably best to leave it alone. Be our secret shopper. Okay, there's probably lots of legit secret shopper stuff going on, but there's also a lot of fake ones. And you go to their website and they've got these fake testimonials, and they were all from the same day, and that day was 3 years ago. All right. I mean, if you're paying attention, the stuff is easy to suss out, right? But okay, sign up for a secret shopper. All right. Here's how it works. They send you a check. Here's the check. Okay. So I had them send it to me at Seattle Municipal Tower, which shows me they're just not paying attention. And there are things wrong with this check, but it's going to be for right around $2,000. Why? Because they figure, oh, people got about $2,000 in a checking account. And they go, okay, here's your instructions. We want you to go to this gym and get a workout and write us a report on cleanliness, availability of equipment, how friendly were the service staff there. And then we want you to go to this restaurant and have a meal and write a report on quality of the food, quality of the wait staff, the atmosphere, and then whatever's left over, keep $400 for yourself for your payment, and then just wire the rest of it back to this Western Union address and write us a report on how Western Union worked for you. Okay. And then about 10 days later, because your bank will take this check and go, oh, it's got a real routing number there. So they got to send it to another bank. And it's not till it comes back from the other bank that they go, you know what? That was a fraudulent check. And you can tell because it says upper left, Portland, Oregon, right? In the middle top says Us Bank Corp, not US Bank Corp. So I mean, there's things wrong with it. And I hope you like the workout and the meal because you wired away your own money, right? The bank is just going to take that money right back out. You give them this check, they're going to credit your account for 1850, and then they're going to take that 1850 right back out. Okay, all right, the do's and don'ts. All right, you're going to get links that come in with no context in email and in text messages and things like that. And especially if it's coming from some kind of social media, Instagram, something like that, because a lot of the accounts there get compromised. And then people that grab that account will then send a link to everyone, well, their followers. Okay. And that link will just compromise more and more and more people. So when a link comes in and it has no context at all, okay, and I've gotten these from my friends, right? It's Michael, link, Kelly. No, no, do not hit the link. Do not be inquisitive. A lot of these will be shortened links too. If you are curious, you can run it through VirusTotal. Right? Fake apps, all right? Apps that track you. Okay? Be careful with the apps, right? Remember, there's going to be reports on things. You can also Google an app to see if anybody said anything about it. Hey, we did an analysis and here's what's going on here. And you'll find stuff like that. The bait. We looked at a whole bunch of different kinds of baits, right? So remember the text messages coming in. Remember the email that's going to undisclosed recipients and all of those examples we looked at. But the main thing is, if you didn't expect it, you should suspect it. Okay. There's just so much fakery going out there, so much fraud because it's so easy to do, right? Americans' radar for this stuff is not good, right? Hopefully for you all, it's going to be better once we're done here. Patch your vulnerabilities. Got to reboot to activate patches. If you look down the lower right of your tray right now, it's a Microsoft computer, you see a little orange dot. As soon as we're done, you got to reboot your computer. All your tabs will come back. This is the biggie. Personal use is best conducted on a personal device. And I'll tell you how I know that. So we made a lot of measurements at the city of Seattle, and we could prove that 40% of the compromises were due to the use of personal email. Okay. So here's Outlook. It's all cleaned up. Bad links dropped on the floor. Bad attachments into the bit bucket. Okay. And right next to it is a web browser opened a Bubba's email service with no controls at all. What good did it do to spend this money? None. All right. So we're at the point, everybody has one of these. Facebook lives here. Gmail lives here. Because if personal use is all conducted on personal devices, 40% of the problem is just run off a cliff. So if you can make a policy change and do a 40% improvement, right? 40% reduction in risk, why wouldn't you do that? Nobody's going to do that. But personal use on a personal device is probably the best policy you can have. Don't go around security controls when you get the big red Microsoft page that says, hey, we really don't recommend you going any farther than this. The reason they're telling you that is because what's on the other side of it looks like a Microsoft login page and they know it's not Microsoft, right? So don't be curious, right? And like when it comes to you're out of storage, hit this link to go to Microsoft. No, ask an administrator, what's going on here, okay? Don't reuse passwords. Really good to use a password vault. Really good not to store passwords in browsers. There is kind of an open argument about that between me and some of my peers, but that's what I'm going to go with is use password vault, don't store in browsers. If you find USB sticks lying around, don't jack them into a computer, right? Remember, the bad guys, the scattered spider guys, they're here, right? They can do things here that somebody on the other side of the world could not do, like throw USB sticks in bathrooms and parking lots. Let's talk about multi-factor authentication because I said I would define this so that everybody knows exactly what we're talking about here. Now, if you go to, let's say, a credit union in the Midwest, okay, and you go to log into that credit union portal and says, okay, what's your username? What's your password? What was the color of your first car? That is not multi-factor authentication. That's two things you know, right? We call them shared secrets, okay? Your password and the color of your first car that you've already shared with that credit union, okay? That is not multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication is defined as two or more of the following: something you know, something you have, something you are. Okay. So what do you know? You know a password or a PIN, right? What do you have? Well, I have this phone. And when it sends a code to my phone and or it goes to my authenticator app and I can say yes, or here's the code, right? I've proved I'm holding the phone. That's why SIM swapping is so dangerous. Okay. So that's something I know, something I have. And the last one, something I am, my iris print, my palm print. So I used to have to work at the Emergency Operations Center in the city of Seattle because it would activate every time there was an inch and a half of snow and the city would become paralyzed. And the way that you get into the EOC is with a palm reader. We're going to see more and more of these things around. Soon, and this is creepy, DNA is going to be used to authenticate you. And just this is going in weird directions. Okay, anyway, do use multi-factor authentication and disk encryption whenever you can, right? So BitLocker is Microsoft's disk encryption. There's other ways to do it. It's really good because that way you have peace of mind. If you lose a laptop, it's a tree falling in the forest. Okay. Now, more than anything, if you see something, say something. Report strange occurrences. The fan won't turn off on my computer. Okay. I got the memo about the new return to office policy. I logged into SharePoint, but then didn't get anything. Okay. You got to tell somebody that, right? Because you just gave up a password, right? So if you see something, say something. And with that, thank you all very much. I hope this prevents somebody somewhere from doing something that results in a disaster. All right. The things that we talked about, the unauthorized disclosure of protected records, theft, extortion, disruption, just being used as a third party to attack others. Okay. Hopefully, all of these things landed somewhere and you're going to be able to take these away. Send your friends to security awareness training next month. Subscribe to the daily InfoSec Insider newsletter. That's something I've been putting out for almost 20 years now. Just a bunch of articles that everybody needs to know. And it's the title, the money quote, and the original link. And we don't do creepy link tracking. And I do a podcast every week with my colleague Fred Langston. So if you can find that on YouTube, we talk about three of the most interesting things that happen every week. So with that, thank you all very much. See you next time. If you need a certificate, let Ashley and Brad know, and they'll take care of you.
Hey, Mike, we did have one question from the chat from one of the participants around
Okay.
password vaults.
Okay.
They said, "Is LastPass still a viable option? Years ago, they had consecutive breaches or poor security practices, so I avoid them like lines at the ferry."
Yeah. So, okay, a compatriot. um, yeah, so there are, so I'll send that back. So SolarWinds was breached and used to globally, right, compromise organizations. People still use SolarWinds. There are going to be, Microsoft products have breaches all, and still we use Microsoft. I actually think the password vaults are pretty good. And the details around that were such that it wasn't a huge broad scale disclosure of people's passwords. That's not what it was. So I'd be perfectly comfortable. But then there are others. And so if you want to, do some kind of analysis where, well, let's go for one that hasn't been breached, like we use Bitwarden. I like Bitwarden a lot. I like Keeper a lot. I really liked it a lot, until we got acquired and we went to Bitwarden. But, it's 6 of one, two pie of the other. Hope that answers the question. All right, everybody good to go? Thanks, everybody.